Congratulations to the Mountain View High class of 2020. In a few months, you'll be gracing the graduation stage and preparing for your next step. For many of you, that means college, and I want you to close your eyes and imagine for a second that as a graduation gift, you're given a time machine. The time machine takes you back to the year 1970, and this being the Bay Area in the 1970s, you're headed to UC Berkeley. You have long hair and wavy clothes, but it's not just your clothes and your appearance that are different. When it comes time to pay for your education, your bill is $150. That's about $1,000 in today's dollars, and it's something that you can pay with a part-time minimum wage summer job. Now back to real life. For those of you headed to Berkeley in the fall, congratulations. Your bill will be closer to $30,000. Even for lower income families, they're still expected to pay up to a third of their family income for the associated costs and expenses with going to Berkeley. How did we get from a world of $150 tuition to $30,000? What happened? How did we get to a world where not only is tuition skyrocketing, but there's nearly $1.7 trillion of student loan debt in the economy? According to the Hope Center for College, Community, and Justice, around half of college students experience hunger and food insecurity. 1 in 6 experienced homelessness last year. We're here today to talk about the story of how we got into this mess, but we're also here to talk about how we want to get out of it. And I'm here to argue that if we want to bring ourselves back to the world of $150 tuition, if we want to bring ourselves a world where your effort and not your family wealth determines your success in college, then we need to make college affordability an issue that we vote on. We need to make it an issue not only that we discuss at the dinner table, but that we discuss at the ballot box. We need to make it an issue that we hold our elected officials and politicians accountable for, so they're accountable to you, to students and young people across the country whose future depends on their votes. And to understand why that's so important, you have to understand the history. For more than 100 years, public higher education here in California was free. In 1960, the state's Master Plan for Higher Education reaffirmed the commitment to tuition-free education. It said, "We reaffirm that the CSU and UC will remain tuition-free to California residents." But not everyone was a fan. In the late 1960s, then Governor Ronald Reagan fought hard in the legislature to implement a tuition system. And while he was unsuccessful, he did ultimately succeed in levying that $150 fee that paved the way for our modern high tuition, high aid model. And another thing was happening in our politics too. Governor Reagan and conservatives saw free public higher education as a political threat. One of their advisors described educated, lower income people as an educated proletariat. That's dynamite, they said. And that was in reference to the political threat posed by the idea that anyone should be able to access higher education regardless of where you come from. And so they fought, not just here in California, but in places like the CUNY and SUNY system in New York, to undermine the legacy of free public higher education that had shaped our system for so long. And another factor shaped the undermining of students too. Before 1970, it was rare for elected officials to become lobbyists after leaving elected office. Now there's a revolving door between positions that are elected and lobbying firms that pay high dollar salaries. And here in California, just last year, more than $300 million was spent by lobbyists in Sacramento, representing oil and gas industries, representing labor unions, representing healthcare, representing every industry that you can think of. But if we try to tally the amount that was spent fighting for college students, fighting to keep college affordable, it's so small that it's difficult to calculate. And it's not that our elected officials don't want to do the right thing. Most of them do. Many of them, in fact, are alums of the institutions that we're fighting for. But when it comes time to decide between their jobs and the lobbyists and advocates who can spend millions of dollars to re-elect them or kick them out of office, and doing the right thing for college students, too often college students have been on the losing side of that battle. And that's why a little over 2 years ago, as a graduate student at UC Berkeley, I teamed up with students from across California to start a nonprofit advocacy organization called RISE. RISE hires and trains community college and university students to fight not only to make public higher education tuition and fee free, but to eradicate campus hunger and homelessness and help more students graduate from college with little and ideally no debt. Over the last 2 years, we built a movement of more than 30,000 students and supporters nationwide. And it's not just that we're building the fight for college students. We've had some real successes too. We've helped enact 1 and now 2 years of free community college legislation for first-time, full-time students here in California. We've fought and succeeded to stop tuition hikes at the CSU and the UC for the last 2 years, and we'll do it again this year. And just yesterday, we helped introduce legislation that would restore the path to a tuition-free bachelor's degree here in California. But it's not enough for us to be strong advocates. We could be the world's best advocates, but if students don't vote, we'll never succeed in enacting the policies that we need to put higher education within reach for all. And that's the point of our talk today. In 2020, we have the opportunity to elect officials from the State House to the White House who will not only shape the trajectory of this nation, but shape the trajectory of your next 4 years in college. And it's not just rhetoric. In March, there's a $6 billion bond that would reinvest that funding in facilities for community colleges and public university campuses here in California. In November, we'll have the opportunity to repeal Prop 13, which is the original sin of California's tax code when it comes to completely defunding our public schools and public universities. And the way that we need to do that is not just to register to vote or pre-register to vote if you're 16 and 17. The way we need to do that is to demand that all of our elected officials, whether you're running for president or city council, has a real plan to meet the needs of students and to fight for students' needs. That means holding them accountable for their votes. That means educating ourselves, our family members, our community members about the issues that are at stake. It means that finally we have to treat college affordability like as an electoral issue the same way that we treat healthcare, the same way that we treat immigration, the same way we treat climate change or keeping students safe from gun violence in schools. Because if we do that, if we build this movement of students from across the country, if we fight not just for the future of our country, but the future of our own educations, then we won't need a time machine to return to the days of $150 tuition. Because in 2020, we'll be able to vote for it. Thank you.